Welcome to the WDW Reflections Podcast. Here, we'd love to talk about the Walt Disney World Resort, the way we remember it, how it's changed, and why we still enjoy visiting the most magical place on Earth. So come with us on a podcast journey as we reflect on the WDW Reflections Podcast. October 1st will be the 40th anniversary of my favorite park, EPCOT Center. Today's show is all about honoring and remembering EPCOT Center, the best Disney park ever.
Hi, WDW Reflection Podcast fans. My name is Trisha Daab. I have been very honored to be a guest on the podcast in the past. Tony, Dewey, and Ron reached out to me about getting the opportunity to share a memory of EPCOT in celebration of the 40th anniversary. EPCOT is hands down my favorite park at Walt Disney World. I could probably share 40 memories. They told me one, so I'm going to share two.
Hey, WDW Reflections friends. It's Aydin, your buddy from Theme Park Life fan page. I just wanted to say how happy I am that you're doing a show specifically about my favorite theme park in the world, EPCOT.
Hey everyone, so I want to share some of my thoughts and experiences with EPCOT.
So I would say that my favorite memory as a cast member at EPCOT would be when we got to see Reflections of Earth before anyone else got to, any of the guests did.
I remember looking at the giant sphere, thinking that everything took place in there. That's EPCOT Center, and everything is through these gates. I couldn't place it until I was actually physically there, almost a decade later.
You're using your imagination. You're like, so all of this stuff is in that great big golf ball?
Yeah, the big golf ball. That's everything's in there.
I just remember really enjoying seeing what the predictions were for the future and how now looking back, how is that almost everything that they talked about we do.
The coolest thing about EPCOT, I loved it. It had that World's Fair vibe. You had the World Showcase that was obviously showcasing different countries in the world, just like countries could do at a World's Fair. And then in Future World, you had companies sponsoring these pavilions, just like they would in a World's Fair. And I fell in love with it the first day I walked into that park. Little 11-year-old Dewey. And it was my favorite park then, and it's been my favorite park for my entire life.
As a guest, my favorite part about EPCOT would be the Food and Wine Festival. I always loved going around and tasting all the different foods and wines from all the different countries. It's always my favorite time of year.
EPCOT has some really wonderful restaurants. They were the kind of cuisine that you don't necessarily think you're going to find in a theme park. It was, and the fact that it was international. I mean, I still have memories of that meal at Le Cellier, or even the bistro, or some of the places that I wouldn't necessarily go to here. I got them at EPCOT, and it was great. It was great stuff.
I was at EPCOT in 2017 at Chefs de France and had the opportunity to interview the head chef, Bruno, that has worked at EPCOT at Chefs de France since it opened. He actually worked with Paul Bocuse, and he was trained under Paul Bocuse, and Paul Bocuse brought him to the U.S. to work at EPCOT. And it was really exciting to get the opportunity to meet Bruno, chat with him about his favorite foods at Disney, and then to be able to go back, I believe it was 1 or 2 years later, and to meet Bruno again and show him the book and that he was interviewed, and he actually signed a copy of the book for me. This is one of my favorite EPCOT memories because, one, it involved delicious food at France, so that obviously great memory. And also this a unique magical opportunity to talk to a chef that has seen EPCOT as a park transform so much over his time that he had been at the park. And at that point, it was about 35 years.
So I like EPCOT a lot. I liked it earlier, whenever it was more of the education-based EPCOT than what it is now. Although now there's still a lot that's fun. But one of the things that I remember fondly is in 1991, inside of Dewey's favorite, the World of Motion, we got to go into the employee lounge. So it was sponsored by GM, and a good friend of mine that I played baseball with, his dad worked for GM. So we got his employee pass, and we were able to go into the lounge on the top. And they had, you can sort of see it in the background here. There was a big flat screen projection TV. Remember, this is 1991, so technology wasn't that great. And they had a camera on the outside, and they were showing what the outside was like. So a little plaza outside of World of Motion.
We had taken a trip to Disney, and so I really wanted the girls to go and learn some culture. So they had pass books that basically they looked like a passport for kids to go and get stamped at each country.
Oh, fun.
And so we had the girls each get a passport and had them go and talk, because the representatives were actually college students that were doing some type, probably, I think, if I remember this correctly, were paid to come over and intern at Disney and work that country from that country. And so it was cool to let the girls get to interact with people from all the different countries and see them get to get their passport stamped. And in that same journey, we took a full day to do nothing but walk through those countries, and just some really unique opportunities for the girls. Some of them took really a great interest in them and really asked the girls about their culture, and then shared the culture from their country and the differences. It was just a good day, and probably one of my fondest memories from EPCOT.
We also got to miss school, which leads to the next thing. There's my older sister. She was in 7th grade. Part of whenever my parents took us out of school at the end of the year, of whenever her teacher said, well, she's missing school. And they said, oh, it's educational. So we were staying at the Yacht and Beach Club, and you can see how close it is to EPCOT. There it is. You can see EPCOT is right behind it. So it's a 5-minute walk to EPCOT. And my dad and my older sister went to EPCOT, and they walked around the countries. And my sister said something little about each of the countries to get her educational fix in for to be able to get out of school at the end of the year.
In the end of 1999, when they were debuting the Millennium Celebration, and for the Millennium Celebration, they introduced Reflections of Earth. And that nighttime spectacular truly transformed the World Showcase. What they did then was that's when they put up all the torches around World Showcase. Those giant torch towers that, gave off that really cool lighting effect around World Showcase. And the music that they played around World Showcase prior to the beginning of Reflections of Earth, that is hands down, beyond a shadow of a doubt, my favorite place to be, my favorite time of day, everything in any part of Walt Disney World is around World Showcase Lagoon at night when the torches have been lit and the music is playing, and it's before Reflections of Earth.
I stayed on site at the Yacht Club. I was told that you could get to EPCOT from there. So I said, what would be a great time is when the show that's called Illuminations would be on. I said, I'm going to try leaving my hotel room and walking that so that I can go see Illuminations from EPCOT, which I did, but I didn't realize that it was going to be that much of a walk. And all I remember was I was walking for what seemed like hours and hours on end, but I got to see the entire illumination thing as I got from one end to the other. So that, for me, was my most favorite time that I was at EPCOT.
For me, what made Epcot special were the original attractions, the original pavilions, especially in Future World. The Horizons and World of Motion and the original Journey to Imagination and the original Universe of Energy. I really just fell in love with the original attractions. Every single one of them was different and unique. I mean, even just walking up to the buildings look like nothing you had ever seen before. Spaceship Earth, giant golf ball. never seen that before. Horizons looked like a UFO or a spaceship. It was like that weird, almost, I don't know, pentagonal or something. When you look at it from the front, it may be a diamond. I don't know. I don't even know. But buildings didn't look like that. And then you had Universe of Energy had all the solar panels on the top, and 11-year-old Dewey from Arkansas had never even heard of a solar panel before. What the heck is that?
Yeah. Now, in Imagination, they have a lounge for Disney Vacation Club members. And I'm a member, so I got to go in there. And so this is inside the pyramid in the Imagination Pavilion, looking straight up. But looking out, you can see Spaceship Earth, and the views were pretty interesting. You get a unique perspective on it. And you can see the monorail track faintly going through here. And then looking over, you can see test track. And then this balloon is the Characters in Flight balloon that's over in Disney Springs.
Of course, like most of you, I do love all of the slow-moving Omnimover rides that were there early on in the park. I also really loved the World Key area where you'd go and speak to somebody on a video phone to do your dining reservations. I know that was something that really blew my mind the first time that I saw it as a kid.
10 years ago, maybe even less than 5 years ago, getting a video conference set up in an office place was fairly complex in of itself. I remember them having phones where you could talk to each other via video and it being the norm. And not everybody, it was normally executives that had access to that, not just every employee. Now every employee just gets a camera and you can set up.
Back in 1995, Epcot was celebrating Epcot 95. I remember visiting one of those pavilions in the front there. And we came across this room that was all full of computers. And on that computer, there was the ability to chat from one end of the room to the other. And my sister took one computer at the front and I took one at the back, and we were video chatting with each other thinking, wow, this is cool. This is the way we're going to be talking to each other in the future. But in our minds, that future seemed like that was going to be years and years and years and years away. It was a miracle that we were able to see each other on this machine and talk to each other as if we were video conferencing like they did on the Jetsons.
So the weather's not always great in Disney, and one time it rained. This was in December 2018. Then my wife and I went, and instead of buying the ponchos that are $10 each, we went to a store. We just bought some big garbage bags, and we put those on to act as our ponchos. Just cut holes in the sleeves and the head, and we were fine to go. But that was a wet day. The nice thing was the lines weren't that long, so we got to walk on a bunch of the different rides. So that was great.
Okay, memory number 2. I like memories where you end up with something to show for it later. And my second memory is actually from 2018. It was my first time visiting Disney World with a friend. And I was actually there with my Disney bestie at Lilo, _the Lost Princess. Her name is Jamie Nelson. That's her Instagram. And Jamie and I actually met through social media and that have remained friends for years and years. I think we're coming up on 5 years of friendship, again, having met through Instagram. We were able to visit Disney World. We were there at the same time back in 2018. And one of the cool things that we got to do was go to Festival of the Arts. So here I was in my favorite park, at my favorite festival, Festival of the Arts, hands down my favorite festival. Love food and wine. I'm a total foodie, but there's something about Festival of the Arts that I love. And getting to do my favorite thing to do while at Epcot, tasting the magic, just walking around, trying different foods, exploring the pavilions, going to all the food studios that are at Festival of the Arts. And when you're in Japan during Festival of the Arts, at least back then, one of the things, if you ordered the cup of sake, it came in this wooden style cup, and they would write your name on it, and the cast members in Japan would write your name on the box in Japanese. I love this memory because it was so much about everything about what's amazing in Epcot. Trying a new thing. I hadn't had sake before. I'd never drank anything out of a wooden square cup. And getting to be in my favorite park during my favorite festival, doing one of my favorite things with my Disney bestie is a memory that you can only really have at Disney World.
I had the opportunity to meet Tony at Epcot.
Yes.
I had the opportunity to meet Dewey at Epcot. I don't know if you remember this, Dewey. We went to Mission Space though, and I think we wrote it together, but what we did at the end, they had stations that almost remain empty now because it's so common to be able to send a picture to email addresses. And we were part of the Mouse House, and Dewey and I took a picture on one of those kiosks and sent it to email and had a big time with that. So those are memories that will always be very fond for me. And I think it's the essence of how Disney becomes and stays so popular, is that it's very family oriented and great places for people to gather and enjoy each other's company while enjoying some great entertainment.
Somebody from my office had gone to Epcot in like the early 80s and brought this mug from me. You can see it says EPCOT Center on there.
From the year 2000, this is from the Millennium Celebration, paperweight kind of thing for your desk.
Oh, there we go with the Celebrate the Future hand in hand, because there's hands.
That's exactly what this is. It's Mickey's hands holding Spaceship Earth, but it's painted like a globe, so you see all the continents and stuff.
I'll never forget running across, and you had the opportunity to build your own robot. You could walk out of this pavilion with your very own robot for free.
And of course, whenever we went to Norway, I got to try on one of the Viking helmets, and this one did come with little braids, so definitely don't have that hair, but it looks good, you know.
I was very interested in the Segway, and you could ride or practice the Segway in there.
My family, actually, my wife's family, had taken the opportunity to rent and do the tour with it.
Nice.
And I don't remember why I didn't do it. I know I have horrible balance, so I think I didn't really want to try that. But I did stand and watch them as they came out, and that seemed like a very cool experience to just be able to scoot around the park and see it from that perspective.
Now, one of the really neat things is, perspectives, things you can see in Epcot. And if you stand by the Showcase Plaza, where between Mexico and Canada, and as you walk towards Mexico, so you're pretty close to Mexico in this one, if you look over towards Morocco, you can see the Tower of Terror behind it. And they made it that way, the coloring of Tower of Terror, partly the way it is, so that it would fit into this perspective that you can see from Epcot and how it blends in right behind Morocco. And even some of the architecture of kind of the minaret here with the curved top and then the spire, you get a little bit of that architectural feel with the Tower of Terror, which is a great architectural design aspect that they build into Tower of Terror and the whole thing. So that's pretty neat.
I don't know, maybe I'm just a nerd for this kind of stuff, but I loved that every pavilion had its own logo, and every pavilion had its own theme, and every pavilion had its own theme song. Universe of Energy had, the Universe of Energy, the song, and Listen with the Land had the Listen with the Land song, and just fun to be free at World of Motion, and Horizon. Oh, goodness gracious,
Yeah.
Golden Dreams.
Golden
Or,
Dreams,
to
and the one
me,
inside,
Two
the
Brothers.
Two Brothers. Mhm.
Oh my gosh, it's so good.
Epcot is also the center where they brought music to be part of the festivities as well, with the
Off Kilter.
Off Kilter. If you walk to the British Pavilion, there'd be a band doing 60s British music and that looked like the Beatles. You'd go to another section and there'd be Asian music, Italian music, and I actually got to see Davy Jones from the Monkees perform at one of those summer festival things. I mean, the music encompasses both their original stuff as well as the people that they brought in to perform.
If I'm in a bad mood, which I mean, doesn't really happen a lot, but if I'm not having the best day, I guess you could say, I'll just throw on an Epcot loop off of YouTube or something in my office at work. And, every time I come from the classroom into my office and I hear Epcot playing, it just it soothes me. It just calms me or
Dude, that would make me want to be at the parks. I'm not sure that would be soothing.
Everything makes me want to be at the parks anyway. All day, every day, I feel that way.
Well, and I think Disney has captured the power of music, and they definitely understand how music can take you back to a specific time in memory every time you hear a specific song. And there's no doubt that they have one of the most powerful uses of music in all of their different venues and what they do.
Now, other perspectives of other places you can actually see Epcot. So this is from Expedition Everest. As you're going up the lift hill, whenever over in Animal Kingdom, if you look off to the left, you can see both Hollywood Studios and Epcot. And so here's a picture. You can clearly see Spaceship Earth, and that big blue building is the new Cosmic Rewind for the Guardians of the Galaxy ride. Here is the tower for Coronado Springs, and then off to the side you can see the Riviera. So the views going up that lift hill are incredible. But I always like to take a picture, even though I have like 10 of them, of Epcot and Hollywood Studios. I always take another one, and you can actually see how different things are built with the tower for Coronado Springs and the Riviera and Guardians of the Galaxy. But through the years, you can see different things popping up.
World Showcase is probably my favorite. It's got a lot of variety. I used to love going on the Mexico ride. I used to love going on Maelstrom when it was there. I used to love sitting in on the British Experience on the one side. I think I spent a lot of time at that section because that's where a lot of the better food was, and of course the American Pavilion, which is my favorite attraction there.
There's several things I like in the World Showcase, but Future World is definitely where I would spend my time. Just the future and technology, Mission Space is there, my favorite ride of Disney. But I think you still have some of that old classic Epcot that lives there that I still enjoy.
So nowadays, my wife and I, and as my kids have gotten older, we love going around World Showcase and eating the food from the different countries and all that stuff. So for me, since 1999, since the introduction of the Millennium Celebration and Reflections of Earth, my answer would be World Showcase. That is our absolute favorite place to be, and I anticipate most of the time when we go to the parks, that's probably where we're going to hang out. We're going to be eating some pastries from the France Pavilion and drinking some German beer and just loving life, living at World Showcase.
And probably most interesting one is coming in on the flight. Those are going to be a little bit hard to see, but looking out the right-hand side, if you're coming from the north, looking out the right-hand side of your plane, if you're on that side and have a window seat, you can actually see Walt Disney World. And right here, it's a little bit tough and blurry. It was easier to see with the naked eye. But right there is Spaceship Earth. So being able to see that coming in, that really builds the anticipation. Especially the Magic Kingdom is designed that as you are taking the monorail or the ferry from the parking lot, you can see the Magic Kingdom in the distance. You can see the castle, you can see Space Mountain, and it's just supposed to build anticipation.
Absolutely. I would love to hear some of the favorite things that our listeners, some of the things they think about when they reflect on the history of EPCOT Center over the last 40 years.
And may it last 40 plus more.
May we last 40 plus more.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Well.